Hello all, today we will solve problem set 11. Let's start. The first question gives us a table that shows labor productivities, in other words, outputs per worker. So we have two countries, country A and country B, and we have two goods, goods X and good Y. And we have the information that which country produces which amount of X and Y. So it asks us to determine which country has an absolute advantage in good X. So if we look, country A produces 8 amount of X and country B produces 6 amount of X. So because country A produces more X with the same amount of worker, country A produces, country A has an absolute advantage in good X. And if we look which country has an absolute advantage in good Y, country A produces 4 Ys and country B produces 2 Ys. Again, because country A produces more Y, it has an absolute advantage in good Y. The other question asks us comparative advantage in good X, which country has comparative advantage in good X. So now if we want to determine which country has a comparative advantage, we need to look at the opportunity cost. So for country A, opportunity cost of producing X is 4 divided by 8, which is 1 divided by 2. So when we calculate opportunity cost, we do this calculation, we divide the other goods amount with the goods that we want to determine the comparative advantage. For good B, for country B, the opportunity cost of producing X, we divide 2 by 6, and we now it is equal to 1 divided by 3. So which one is lower? 1 divided by 3 is lower. So country B has a lower opportunity cost of producing X. Therefore, we say country B has a comparative advantage in good X. So for the good Y, we again do the same thing. For the country A, we we divided 8 by 4, because now we look at the good Y. So it is equal to 2. And for country B, we divide 6 by 2, and it is equal to 3. Which one is lower? 2 is lower. That's why country A has a lower opportunity cost of producing Y. Therefore, A has a comparative advantage in good Y. So this is the first question. Let's look at the second question. So it says, suppose the exchange rate between US dollar and euro is $1 is equal to 0.8 euros, and the exchange rate between US dollar and Turkish lira is $1 is equal to $2, 2 liras. And what is the exchange rate between euro and Turkish lira? So it gives us the information that $1 is equal to 0.8 euros and $1 is 2 Turkish liras. So we can write, both of them is equal to the same thing. So we can say that 0.8 euros is equal to 2 TL, because they both is equal to $1. So if 0.8 euros is equal to $2, 1 euros is equal to 2.5 TLs. It is a simple mathematical calculation. You don't need to do anything. So we found the exchange rate between euro and TL. It is this. So again, the same thing. Suppose the exchange rate between US dollar and euro is $1 is equal to 0.9. I'm sorry. Exchange rate between US dollar and Turkish lira is $1 is equal to 2.7 TL. What is the exchange rate between euro and TL? Which one is valuable? So again, 0.9 euros is equal to $1 and 2.7 TLs is equal to $1. They both equal to same thing, so we can say that they are equal. And if 0.9 euros is equal to 2.7 TLs, 1 euros is equal to 3 TL. So $1 was equal to 2.7 TL, and 1 euro is equal to 3 TL. So euro is more valuable because it is higher. How does the change in exchange rate of Turkish lira affect the net exports of Turkey? So if the value of Turkish lira decreases, it makes exports more cheaper and imports more expensive. So our exports will increase because foreigners want to buy from us because it is cheaper than their country. So our exports will increase and imports will decrease. That's why net exports will rise. So let's look at the third question. So again, it gives us a table of Canada and United States, how much honey and maple syrup they produce. And it asks us which country has a comparative advantage in producing maple syrup, which country has a comparative advantage in producing honey. So let's look. I will use a pen. Let me get that. Okay. So let's remember, when we want to determine which country has a comparative advantage, we look at the opportunity cost. So let's look at the Canada. In order to produce 10 more units of honey, it gives us 15 units of maple syrup. So for 10 more units of honey, it gave up 15 units of maple syrup. So if Canada wants to produce 1 more unit of honey, it needs to give up 1.5 units of maple syrup. Let's look at the United States. In order to produce 10 more units of honey, the United States needs to give up 10 units of maple syrup. So let's use another color. So for United States, if they want to produce 10 more units of honey, they need to give up 10 units of maple syrup. And let's do this. If they want to produce 1 more unit of honey, they need to give up 1 unit of maple syrup. So which one is lower? There is a this, okay. Which one is lower? Of course, 1 is lower than 1.5. So United States has a comparative, I'm sorry. Yes, therefore United States opportunity cost is lower, and it has a comparative advantage of producing honey. Yes. So let's look at the let's look at the maple syrup. And again, we'll use a pen. Okay. So in order for Canada, in order to produce 15 more maple syrup, it needs to give up 10, 10 honey, 10 units of honey, sorry. So for 15 more maple syrup, it needs to give up 10 units of honey. So for one more unit of honey, it needs to give up 0.67 units of honey. Let's look at for United States. For 10 more units of maple syrup, it needs to give up 10 units of honey. So for 10 units of maple syrup, it needs to give up 10 units of honey. So for 1 unit of maple syrup, it needs to give up 1 unit of honey. So which one is lower? 0.67 is lower, so Canada has a comparative advantage in producing maple syrup. I'm sorry for the bad writing, I did my best. So let's look at the option B. So it says, suppose that Canada is currently producing 30 tons of honey and 15 tons of maple syrup. And the United States currently producing 10 tons of honey and 40 tons of maple syrup. Demonstrate that Canada and United States can both be better off if they specialize in producing only one good and trade for the other. So we just found that which country has a comparative advantage in which good. So if they both specialize, Canada will produce 60 tons of maple syrup and 0 tons of honey because Canada has a comparative advantage in producing maple syrup. And but why we said 60 tons of? Because the let me use a pen. Because the table gives us that information. If Canada produces 0 tons of honey, it will produce maximum 60 tons of maple syrup. And the United States will produce 0 tons of maple syrup and 50 tons of honey. It is from here because the United States has a comparative advantage in producing honey. So after both countries specialize, the United States could trade 30 tons of honey to Canada for 40 tons of maple syrup because this is from the question. I draw a table here to make it more clear. So this is before trade. I forgot to write that. Before trade. I hope it is clear. This part is before trade and this part is after trade. So, okay. So let's write the same thing. So the question told us that Canada is currently producing 30 tons of honey and 50 tons of maple syrup. The United States producing 10 tons of honey and 40 tons of maple syrup. So I will use another color. So we just said that the United States has a comparative advantage in the production of honey. So United States will produce only honey and Canada will produce only maple syrup. And the Canada need both honey and maple syrup, and United States needs both honey and maple syrup, but if they produce only one of the good, they need to get the other good from the other country. So let me use my pen. So after the trade, Canada was Canada was producing only maple syrup, but it needs honey too. So it was producing 30 tons of honey before the trade. So that means Canada needs to get 30 tons of honey. So it will get the honey from United States. And United States will produce only honey, but it produces 40 tons of maple syrup. So if United States will produce only honey, it needs to get maple syrup from Canada. So it will get 40 tons of maple syrup from Canada. So Canada was producing 60 tons of maple syrup, and Canada gave the 40 tons of it to United States. And if you do the calculation, if you subtract 40 out of 60, you will get 20. So 20 is left for Canada, and United States producing 50 tons of honey, and it gave the 30 of it to the Canada. So United States has 20 of it. So let me write it to here. It produced 50 tons of honey, and it gave the 30 of it to the Canada. So there is 20 tons of honey left for United States. That's why we have this table. I hope it is clear. So let's look at the C part. And it was asking, I guess, another thing in the option B. So yeah, the United States is better off after trade because it can consume the same amount of maple syrup and 10 more tons of honey, because after the trade, it has more maple syrup, and Canada is better off after trade because it can consume same amount of honey and 5 more tons of maple syrup. Yes, I guess there. Okay, yes, that is correct. There is a. Okay, yes, that is correct. I thought there was a mistake in here. So yes, after the trade, let me use a pen. So Canada consumes same amount of honey, but 5 more units of maple syrup, and United States consume the same amount of maple syrup, but 10 more tons of honey after the trade. So both countries are better off because they have more amount of goods that they have comparative advantage on. So trade is beneficial for both countries. So let's look at the option C. Illustrate your answers from part B by drawing a PPF for the United States and PPF for Canada. Show on your PPFs the combination of honey and maple syrup produced and consumed in each country before and after trade. What is PPF? Is Production Possibilities Frontier. So it is this one. So let me make it bigger. So for Canada, it was producing before trade 40 tons of honey and 60 tons of maple syrup if if Canada produce only honey, it will produce maximum 40 tons of honey, and if it produce only maple syrup, it was producing maximum 60 tons of maple syrup. That's why we write it like this, we draw it like this. But after the trade, it is producing, consuming 30 tons of honey and 20 tons of maple syrup. It is more than it can consume in this line. So that's why our new point is above from the line. So after the consumption, Canada's consumption after the trade is here. And it is the same for USA. If USA, United States, produce only honey before the trade, it can produce maximum 50 tons of honey, and if it's only produce maple syrup, it can produce maximum 50 tons of maple syrup. But after the trade, it is consuming 20 tons of honey and 40 tons of maple syrup. It is more than it can consume if it doesn't trade. So the new point is above from the line. So let's look at the third question. Let me make it a little bit. I'm sorry, my computer. Okay, I cannot make it. There's a problem with my computer. Anyways, so it asks, use the following transaction and fill the table below. All these transactions will affect the foreign exchange markets and the Turkey's balance of payments and the value of TL, Turkish liras. Assume that balance of payments is initially at 0. So let's look. If Turkey buys French wine, in order to buy French wine, it needs dollars. So the demand curve for foreign exchange will shift to the right because it needs foreign exchange. And because it is an import, current accounts, we will have a current account deficit, and it is the value of TL will depreciate because in order to buy French wine, we need dollars, and demand curve for foreign exchange markets shift to the right. And Qatari investors build a plants in Turkey. In order them to invest in Turkey, there will be a capital inflow in Turkey. So the supply curve, the supply of foreign exchange will increase in Turkey. That's why supply curve of foreign exchange will shift to the right. And because there is an inflow to Turkey, capital account, we will have a surplus in capital account, and value of TL will appreciate. And if a Spanish corporation receives dividends from a Turkish subsidiary, it is a current account deficit because there is a they receive from Turkey. So the demand curve for foreign exchange will shift to the right, and there will be a current account deficit. That's why the value of TL will depreciate. And EXPO holds this organization in Izmir with all member countries attending. So there will be again foreigners will come to the Turkey, so the supply of foreign exchange in Turkey will increase. That's why the supply curve will shift to the right, and current accounts have a surplus, and that's why the value of TL will appreciate. And Turkish investors buy Swedish stocks. Again, will be a need to have a dollars in order to buy the stocks. So there will be a demand for foreign exchange, and there will be an outflow from Turkey to foreign country. That's why there will be a capital account deficit, and it will depreciate the value of TL. And the last one, Turkey sells textiles to Russia. Um, so if Turkey sells something to a foreign country, it will receive a payment. So we will get a payment from Russia, and that's why the supply of foreign exchange will increase in Turkey. So the supply curve will shift to the right, because we export something, we will have a current account surplus, and that's why the value of TL will appreciate. So let's look at the question 5. So it says indicate the impact of following events on both foreign currency and domestic currency by using foreign exchange market diagrams for demand and supply of US dollars and demand and supply of TL. So let me use a pen again. Okay, so it says interest rate in Turkey increases relative to interest rate in US. So if the interest rate in Turkey increases, the investors will find to invest in Turkey more attractive because it is higher. So um, they will come to Turkey and start to invest in Turkey. That's why the supply of dollars will shift to the right, because foreigners came to the Turkey and they use their money to invest. That's why in Turkey there will be a increase in the supply of dollars. So that's why the supply curve for dollars will shift to the right. And also the if the interest rate in Turkey increases, it will increase the demand for TL, because again, for the same reason, they need Turkish lira for invest. So demand curve for TL is also shift to the right. So after these happens, the dollar will depreciate and Turkish lira will appreciate, because of the interest rates increase in Turkey. So if the demand for US goods increase in Turkey, so if there is an increase in the demand for US goods, demand for dollar will increase, because in order to buy US goods, we need dollars. So the demand for US dollars will increase. So the curve will shift to the right, and also supply of TL will increase, because we need to have an amount of Turkish lira in order to exchange it for dollar. So supply of Turkish lira will increase. So that's why Turkish lira depreciate, because there is a very high amount of supply of TL and demand for dollars increase. That's why dollar appreciates. So if income increases in the US, let's go to the other, okay. So if their income increases, they will increase their spending on Turkish goods, and they supply dollar in exchange for TL. So it will increase the supply of dollars increase, and that means the supply of dollars curve will shift to the right, because they bought goods from Turkey. And when their income increases, the demand for goods and services by US consumers and firms for Turkish goods will also increase. This is the same thing that I said earlier. Therefore, demand for Turkish liras will also increase because they need Turkish lira in order to buy from Turkey. So dollar depreciates and Turkish lira appreciates. So let's look at the sixth question. I asked, write down the effects of monetary and fiscal policies on exchange rate. I took it from the slides that Shinuja gave it to you. So I will say the same things with her. So if the central bank implements expansionary monetary policy, what does it mean? It will increase the money supply. If I can draw a graph to show it to you. So let's say they implement a monetary policy. So let me use there's interest rate and there is a quantity of money. So this is money supply graph. It is vertical and this is money demand. So if the central bank implements a expansionary monetary policy, it means it will increase the money supply. Let me use another color. So new money supply curve is this one. So before the policy, interest rate was this, and after the policy, the interest rate is this. So let me write 2 here. So like you see, interest rate decreases. So interest rate decreases after this. Let me clear this up. Okay, so if the interest rate decreases, it will it means that investing in Turkey is not attractive for foreign people, and investing in foreign countries is more attractive. So demand for foreign assets will increase, and it means appreciation for foreign assets, and that's why it will decrease the price of domestic goods in terms of foreign goods. So that's why it lowers the exchange rate. And if the interest rates decreases, the consumption and investments will increase, and it will increase the income. If the income increases, our imports will increase because we have higher income. We can buy from foreign goods now, from countries. So when our imports increases, demand for domestic currency will decrease, and demand for foreign currency will increase. That's why exchange rate decreases. And also price level will increase after an expansionary monetary policy. Again, it's the same. If the price level increases, the foreign goods will be cheaper than the domestic goods. That's why we want to import, we want to buy from foreign countries. That's why, again, exchange rate will decrease. For contradictionary monetary policy, it is the opposite of it. When a central bank implements the contradictionary monetary policy, it will decrease the money supply, and that's why interest rate will increase. So investing in Turkey will be more attractive. So demand for domestic assets will increase, and it will appreciate. It will be a result. It will result in an appreciation of domestic currency. So it will be in the end increase in the price of domestic currency in terms of foreign currency. So exchange rate will increase, and if central bank implements a contradictory monetary policy, because interest rate will decline. increase, the income will decline because consumption and investment will decrease. That's why now we have a lower income. We will tend to import less. That's why our exchange rate will increase. And because of this policy, again, the price levels will fall. That's why buying goods in our country will be cheaper than buying from foreign countries. So our imports will decrease. So exchange rate will increase. So the TL will appreciate now. The when we implement expansionary fiscal policy, interest rate will increase, and that's why, again, for the same reasons I said earlier, exchange rate will increase. And expansionary fiscal policy means government spendings will increase or taxes will decrease, or both of them at the same time. That's why the incomes of people will increase, and that's why they can import more. And when the imports increases, exchange rate will decrease, and again, price level will increase. That's why people wants to buy from foreign countries, because the goods will be cheaper. So that's why exchange rate will fall. But now, because of the interest rate, exchange rate increases, and because of the income and price level, exchange rate decreases. That's why we don't know the net effect of this policy on exchange rate. It is not clear. It can increase or decrease. We don't know the net effect. And it is the same for contradictory fiscal policy. Because of the contradictory fiscal policy, interest rate will fall and it will decrease the exchange rate. And again, it will decrease the income and price level. If the income decreases, we will tend to import less, and it will increase the exchange rate. And because of price level falls, we will tend to prefer domestic goods than foreign goods. So exchange rate will also increase again. So because of the interest rate, our exchange rate decreases, and because of the income and price level, exchange rate will increase. That's why we don't know the net effect of exchange rate, because there is a decrease and two increases. So it is not clear. So let's look at the multiple choice question. If Californians increase their purchases of Italian wine, assuming all else remains constant, this will blank of the United States. So if people from United States increase their purchase of Italian wine, it means they are importing. So their imports will increase. Let me use the pen. Their imports will increase. So what was the net balance of trade? So we have this. And if this increases, there will be a decrease in the balance of trade, because there is a minus sign. So the option A is the correct one. So if foreign holdings of US dollars increase, holding all else constant, because foreign holdings is a financial account, it's included in financial account, and if it increases, the balance on the US financial account will increase. That's why the option A is the right answer. So you are traveling in Ireland and are thinking about buying a new digital camera. You have decided you will be willing to pay $125 for a new camera. But cameras in Ireland are priced in euros. If the exchange rate is 0.8 5 euros per dollar, which is the highest price in euros you will be willing to pay for a camera. So this is a very simple question actually. Let me use a pen. The thing that you need to do is multiply 125 with 0.85, and you will find that it is equal to 106.25. So you are willing to pay this amount of dollars, and this is the same you're willing to pay, but in terms of euros. So it is the same. And the current account includes records of a country. Current account includes net exports, net investment income, net transfers. All of them is included in economy's current account. So the answer is D. Well, let's continue. Suppose the majority of the shares of Ford stocks were sold to Japanese firm. Assuming all else remains constant, this will the majority of the shares of Ford stock were sold to Japanese firms. So you get a payment from a Japanese firm to the USA. So it will increase the balance of the United States financial account. So because there is an increase in the capital outflows from the United States, there will be a decrease in the balance on the financial account. So let's look at the other questions. So let's look at the seventh question. Based on the following information, what is the balance on the current account? So how we calculate current account. So we need to look at these numbers. So exports of the goods and services are 12 million minus imports, there are 14 million. Net income on investments is minus 4, and net transfers is minus 1, so it is equal to minus 7. Let me check. Minus 2, yes, it is equal to A. Let's look. A market determined increase in the dollar price of the pound is associated with depreciation of the dollar, because if the let me write it like this is 1 pound. It is very ugly, but it is the sound of pound. It's supposed to be sound the sign of pound. It was $3. It says there's an increase in the dollar price of pound, so it is $5 now. It increased. It is the same thing. So that means there is a depreciation of the dollar. A market determined decrease in the dollar price of pound is associated with the opposite of its appreciation of the dollar. So let's look. Purchasing power parity is a theory that in the long run exchange rate should allow one to buy the same amount of goods and services. It is a basic description of it. So I'm passing to the 11th question. Currency traders expect the value of TL to fall. And what effect will this have on the demand for TL and the supply of TL in the foreign exchange market? If currency traders expect the value of TL to fall, they will demand less of TL because its value will decrease, and the supply of TL will increase in order to exchange it for other um, currencies. Uh, that's why the correct answer is C. When the market value of the Turkish lira rises relative to other currencies around the world, we can say that the TL has appreciated. So the market value of Turkish lira, for example, one Turkish lira was equal to $3, but now it is equal to $5. It means TL has appreciated. The ratio at which a country can trade its exports for imports for other countries is called the terms of trade. Whenever a buyer and seller agree to trade, they must both believe that they will be both better off. If one of them believes that they will it will be indifferent or that won't be profitable, so they won't agree to trade. They both need to be agreed that they will be better off. If the Japanese yen depreciates against other currencies in the exchange market, this will tend to improve the Japanese balance of trade. It means if the yen depreciates, buying goods from Japan will be cheaper. So the exports of Japan will increase. That's why it will increase the balance of trade because exports will increase. We will solve the 16 and 17 question refer to this table. So from the table, it is clear that England has a comparative advantage in wine production. Let's look. Let me use a pen. So in order to calculate the comparative advantage, we look the opportunity cost of wine and clothes in England and Portugal. Let's look at England. The comparative advantage, it is this for wine, and what is equal to 2 divided by 3. And let's look, oh, I'm sorry, I did look. Let's look at the 16 question. So the question 16 and 17 refer to the table presented below, showing the amounts of cloth and wine that England and Portugal can produce with the same amount of resources. So the 16 question wants us to find which country has a comparative advantage in which good. So for England, the opportunity cost of wine is 100 divided by 120, which is equal to 5 divided by 6. And for Portugal, the comparative the opportunity cost of producing wine is 90 divided by 60, which is equal to 3 divided by 2. Which one is lower? This one. So England has a comparative advantage in wine. Let's look at the clothes. We will do the opposite of it. So for England, it is equal to 120 divided by 100, so it is equal to 1.2. And for Portugal, it is equal to this. So it is 8 divided by 9. Which one is lower? This one is lower. So Portugal has a comparative advantage in cloth production. So the option B is the correct one. So the opportunity cost of a bolt of cloth in England, blank barrel of wine, and the opportunity cost of a bolt of cloth in Portugal is blank barrel of wine. We just calculated it. So, but let's do it again. So opportunity cost of a bolt of cloth, it is 112 divided by 100, which is, I bought 1.2 in for the 16 question, but the options were wrote 6 divided by 5, so it is equal to this one, but that wrote it in that way because options are in this way. So for Portugal, it was equal to this. So it is equal to 8 divided by 9. So this is 6 divided by 5. This one, 8 divided by 9. I'm sorry. 6 divided by 5 and 8 divided by 9 is the correct answer. And in North, it takes 50 labor hours to produce cloth and 100 hours to produce grain. In South, it takes 200 labor hours to produce cloth and 200 hours to produce grain. Which of the following statement is true? North has a comparative advantage in the production of cloth because in North it takes less labor hours to produce clothes, and that's why it has a comparative advantage. In North, it takes 50 labor hours to produce cloth, and in North it takes 200. Which one is lower? 50 is lower. That's why North has a comparative advantage. And when a country's currency depreciates, country's imports will fall because if a country's currency depreciates, it will be expensive to buy goods from foreign countries, and that's why export will increase because the goods and services will be cheaper for the foreigners. That's why they will prefer to buy from the countries, this country, and GDP is likely to increase because net exports will increase because our imports fall and export rise. That's why GDP will increase. So that was all for this problem set. I hope it's all clear. If you have any questions and if there is a point that wasn't clear, please send an email to me, and thank you for watching.